Okay, so Sons of Sparta. Um, Let me get my positives out of the way before focusing on my larger issues with it. First and foremost, gameplay and mechanics wise, I like that it feels like a mashup between OG God of War and the newer Norse games. And I think um, overall, the retro Metroidvania style lends itself extremely well to this universe. Character wise, I enjoyed being able to just sit back and witness the sibling relationship between Kratos and Deimos because we don't get to see that before things go pear shaped in Ghost of Sparta. And I really appreciated Kratos' character here. This is probably the most human that he's been in this entire franchise, and not only is he the caring older brother, but he's also this strict, disciplined Spartan cadet, eventual leader who also still has quite a lot of respect and faith in the gods at this point, which is also nice to see. My problem here is with the narrative. Now, I'm not dumb. I know good and well that this game exists purely to get people hyped for the Greek trilogy remake that's coming. But I had quite a bit of hesitation and skepticism as to exactly how this was going to fit in the already established timeline, which um, I think is important because you want your game to matter. If somebody comes along and wants to play the entire timeline in chronological order, you want this to be your definitive prequel that they can't afford to skip in favor of the 3D games. Now, how do you do that? Well, one way would be on the Kratos Deimos side of the story. You could have it end with Athena and Ares showing up to steal Deimos away from his family, which would obviously feed directly into the events of Ghost of Sparta. And then another way would be on the more present day Calliope Kratos side of things. He's telling her this story between deployments, so you could have that part end with him having to leave and defend Sparta against the barbarian horde, which is the conflict that is responsible for starting everything off. Um, which I also need to mention. Was I the only one that kind of got a pretty gross feeling from Calliope's involvement in this? Because I mean, when you first jump into it and you're figuring out how the game is laid out and structured, I found the idea that they're able to have this father-daughter moment quite sweet. Because again, we don't really get to see a lot of that. But you also can't enjoy it all that long because you know how this story ends, and it doesn't end well at all, which just kind of made the whole thing rather off putting. And I'm not sure why we needed to do it this way, as opposed to having Kratos sit down with Atreus, for example, or even uh, Freya, for that matter, and treat this game like a pit stop between Ragnarok and whatever's coming next, which would be, I guess, a third example of little connective tissues. But just to cut to the chase, it doesn't do any of that. This game does not add anything impactful or terribly significant, which maybe wouldn't be such a bad thing if instead of having the plot be the entire thing, the entire story, if it was instead maybe the opening story arc out of three or four of them maybe, or if the characters had their own side quest lines to add some depth and life into this world. But everything kind of exists to solely serve this narrative, and it's just not that good. I mean, for me, I would say probably after the initial 3 to 5 hour mark is where I kind of had the sinking feeling start seeping in that this game just wasn't going to be what I wanted it to be, and it wasn't going to do what I wanted it to do. And it was probably around the 20-hour mark, just say 75% of the way through the game, where I hit a wall and was just like, I'm bored out of my mind here. I'm not having fun at all. And there isn't remotely enough investment or motivation from this story to push me to overcome the challenges of the game. And I just decided right then and there that it wasn't worth continuing to play, let alone beat all the way through. And you know what? I can even concede that that might be kind of a harsh criticism. Because at the end of the day, this game is only $30, and I think if you are somebody that doesn't particularly care about story, and you're just in it because you love retro games like this and trophy hunting and things like that, there might be some meat on these bones for you. But all I'm saying is that if you, like me, are here because you're a God of War fan, then unfortunately you're probably going to be pretty brokenhearted by this one. But that is going to wrap this episode up, guys. So as always, thanks for watching, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you in the next one.